we're going to get tonight's program started. My name is Christopher Harder. I'm the Deputy Director here at the Amistad Research Center. I'd like to welcome everyone out. Thank you for braving the rain and the weather. Glad you could come join us. Very pleased to have a wonderful speaker, probably someone that most of you know or are familiar with his writing and his books. Keith Weldon Medley is joining us this evening. And this event is being held in conjunction with Amistad's celebration of the 300th anniversary of the tricentennial of the city of New Orleans. It's being held in conjunction with our current exhibition, which is entitled Things We Do for Ourselves, American Civic Leadership in the Crescent City. If you haven't had a chance to take a look at it yet, the front two cases by our front doors and up into the mezzanine gallery is taking a look at leaders, African-American leaders in the areas of education, business, philanthropy in the 19th and 20th century. We've actually extended that through the end of this month, so after Mr. Medley's talk, feel free to take a look around at that exhibition as well. So we're very happy to have this event sponsored in part by the Louisiana Endowment for the Humanities. We'd like to thank them for their generous support in assisting with this program tonight. Don't want to keep you too late tonight, so I'm going to go ahead and introduce our speaker. Keith Weldon Medley is the author of We as Freemen, Plessy versus Ferguson, and the Fight Against Legal Segregation, from Pelican Publishing Company in 2003, and Black Life in Old New Orleans, also published by Pelican in 2014. He's a native of New Orleans, Louisiana, and a two-time recipient of the WE Publication Initiative Grants. As a freelance writer, he's compiled over 100 writings on Louisiana's history and culture, including 2 reports in Smithsonian magazine, and his writings and photographs have appeared in American Legacy, Louisiana Cultural Vistas, Historic Preservation, the New Orleans Tribune, the Times-Picayune, Southern Exposure, and many other publications. And so tonight he's going to be talking about Black Life in Old New Orleans at the Amistad Research Center. He's going to take us on a personal journey through the city's history to uncover some of the most significant events and introduce influential leaders, businesses, and institutions among New Orleans' African-American community during the 19th and 20th centuries. So please put your hands together. Let's welcome Keith Weldon Medley.
Hello everybody, I'm glad to be here in New Orleans, my hometown. I've gone through a whole bunch of places around the country and around the world sometimes. And New Orleans, I always come back here. So I decided to park here. I live on Montgomery Street and forward married. I don't have to do anything to get to any kind of venue. So it's great there. And I don't not go anywhere because of that. Black Life in Old New Orleans, 300 years of the tricentennial from our beloved city. And so thank you. My first book was We as Freemen, Plessy versus Ferguson, Fight Against Legal Segregation. It was based on a Smithsonian article I wrote in 1994. I wrote in March 2012, and it's now in its 3rd printing. I'm proud of the reviews it received, including Law and Politics Books Review, which stated that Medley's detailed history stands out on its own as the most complete historical accounting for one of the court's most infamous decisions. And based on that, I would like to thank Louise Mouton, who's not here, but she did the cover for both of these books. So she's a wonderful person, and so her title of this was "Lift Me Out of Darkness, Set My Spirit Free." Her brother Gerard Mouton provided photographs. The purpose of this work is to wait down. The purpose of this work was to explore the different eras of Black New Orleans by focusing on specific institutions, social movements, and individuals. Each chapter is self-contained and can be read individually. When read cover to cover, the book takes you on a guided tour into the soul of the city from the 1790s and the 1960s and beyond. By the way, I am a licensed tour guide, so I tried to do this by just being a tour. Okay, so along the way, we can explore cherished neighborhoods such as Faubourg Treme and Faubourg Marion in Central City. We meet with accomplishments of Allen T. Woods, a dynamo of entrepreneurship, who established a directory for everyday Black workers and business persons, people who flourished in New Orleans in the 1912s. We take a long look at Louis Armstrong's Black Storyville community and how the culture they created and sustained them and brought them joy not only to their neighborhoods but to music around the world. Stay with me while we travel with Louis Armstrong on his historic trip to the Gold Coast of Africa, where he launched and commiserated with Kwame Nkrumah, the first Black leader of the independent state of Ghana in 1956. And it was, and when he arrived there, it was somewhat awkward because at this time, African Americans and Black people in Africa weren't kind of together. I knew when I was growing up, with racism and everything like that. When I was growing up, all we knew about Africa was a Tarzan movie, and all the stuff that came in through. When I was growing up, it was just like that. So, and Louis Armstrong went through the same process. As a matter of fact, the city hall did not let Black children past the 5th grade to be in the classrooms because they only wanted them to be fit for menial labor. And this is true, so it's not like I'm making this up. And so this is what Louis was doing. So when he arrived there, it was somewhat awkward. There were not many connections between African Americans and Native Americans in that time period. A lady with a British accent introduced herself. A lady, we are indeed extremely happy to be visited by such an eminent character as Satchmo. And on this occasion, we hope that he and his band and Mrs. Augustine will do their level best to remember for the rest of their lives what they have seen today in the Gold Coast. We are taking advantage of this occasion to extend a handshake to them, a cultural handshake to the people of the United States of America, to the colored people whom we look upon as our own. We look to them because we feel that deep down in their own hearts, they must realize that they came from this part of the world. Black life in Old New Orleans spotlights the sacrifices and heroism of activists such as Homer Plessy and the Citizens Committee. Was Plessy Black? Was he white? Was he both? Or was he neither? And does it matter? We met with John Ernest Wright and Zachary T. Ramsey, who founded the People's Defense League in Central City decades before the modern-day civil rights movements. We'll pause to honor ultimate courage of the brave 4 6-year-old Ninth Ward girls, Ruby Bridges, Leona Tate, Gail Achion, Zachary T. Ramsey, who founded the People's Defense League in Central City decades before the modern-day civil rights movement. We'll pause to honor the ultimate courage of the brave 4 6-year-old Ninth Ward girls, Ruby Bridges, Leona Tate, A. Shawn, and Plessy Prevost, who challenged white supremacy, and in 1960, and the lawyers like Niels Douglas, Lois Eric Eli, and Robert Collins that brought justice to the Freedom Riders in 1961. Other chapters of Black life in Old New Orleans take a look in the times and accomplishments of activist educators, such as Fannie C. Williams and Lucian Alexis, who fought for decades to bring quality education to Black children. I was beholden to the second line parades that brought us uptown and back. My neighbors across Burgundy Street wore Mardi Gras Indians. There are 18 pages dedicated to the Mardi Gras Marble section. Here we would chat across the ages with Mardi Gras Indians, baby dolls, the Zulu pleasure and social clubs, and old line debutante societies. Mr. O.C.W. Taylor hosted a radio show on WNOE called The Negro Forum. Nowhere in all of the USA is there a celebration so vast, so observed as the Mardi Gras. It is an institution, rich, poor, middle class, upper class, Catholic, Protestant, Gentile, white and Black, and everyone in New Orleans is conscious of this and a part of this enormous celebration. New Orleans is ruled over by kings and queens during Mardi Gras. Every club and parade has its own royal family in regal splendor. Mardi Gras is the most democratic monarchy I've ever seen. Then there are the Mardi Gras Indian families who roam the streets of the working class neighborhoods on Mardi Gras Day, and the carnival dances of the comfortable classes with lavish balls and big-time fun. New Orleans is one of North America's most intriguing and beloved cities. From the air, you can see the winding Mississippi River, vast Lake Pontchartrain, and the bayous and marshlands that define this region's topography. Claimed by the French in 1718 as a strategic outpost near the mouth of the Mississippi River, this city endured 3 centuries of floods, plagues, fires, and hurricanes. Its old oak trees, 19th century buildings, riverbanks, narrow streets, and its hot, sultry summers all have tales to tell. You can walk the same streets that New Orleanians have had walked for nearly 3 centuries. I grew up on Burgundy Street and fought with Mary in the 1950s and 1960s. It was during the Civil Rights Movement. My father was a plasterer who was raised to the trade, as they say in New Orleans. He and his fellow carpenters, lathers, bricklayers, roof slaters, and other old line tradesmen provided the grit and the muscle that were instrumental in the city's survival. Growing up, every day I walked past historic architectural treasures. With many of these buildings built by people of color before the Civil War, they still stand today as functional residences and businesses. I believe that those who study New Orleans without seeking its African and African American influences invariably miss what it means to know New Orleans. The role of people of color and their contributions helped us provide a fuller understanding of the greatness of our city. Enslaved and free, people of African descent had been here since its earliest days. Between the years 1718 and 1722, boatloads of Africans from the Semi-Gambia region of West Africa and outcasts from French society arrived in New Orleans. They hacked and drained swamps, constructed buildings and levees, and dug canals. For the French indentures, the term of their forced labor was 3 years. For most of the enslaved Africans, New Orleans represented a lifetime of bondage. New Orleans also contained a vibrant community of free people of color who possessed property rights but could not vote or establish organizations without permission. Still, the African descent community contributed mightily to the growth and survival of La Vie de la Nouvelle Orleans. There's sweaters in its architecture, their hands crafted and adorned its oldest buildings, their rhythms moved its music, their creativity and flair spiced its cuisine. The now bygone era of separate but equal was the 60-year-old elephant in the neighborhood, where one attended schools and churches was based on race instead of location. I was well into high school before I was free to walk into Washington Square around the corner from my house. When I watched baseball games there, it was always through a fence. But one evening in the middle of the 1960s, after the Civil Rights Act became law, I saw a black friend of mine that I knew only as text, actually sitting in the bleachers watching a game. He waved for me to come and join him. So after a two-generation family of Jim Crow, I went in and watched the softball encounter without incident. Following 60 years of racial segregation, it was, after all, only a game. The more I delved into the history and culture of Black New Orleans, the more I discovered touchstones of my family history. While writing about the historic Valina C. Jones School in New Orleans, 7th Ward, I came across a group photograph of a proud teaching staff that included my mother, my godmother, and many of their teacher friends. My mother also appeared in a yearbook for McDonald 35 that was the first Black New Orleans high school and also the teacher training school in the city. While researching the 1913 Woods Business Directory of African American entrepreneurs, I saw advertisements for my grandfather's ice cream factory, my cousin John Guillaume Business College, and photography of my great-great-granduncle, Charles Medley, who managed the Boyer and Taylor Funeral Home in Faubourg Treme. I attended an elementary school around the corner from my house that had been educating children of African descent since 1848. There are so many stories left untold. Now, the city has numerous markers and unmarked sites of national importance for African Americans. The train tracks at the Press Street Railroad Yards and Charter Street in the Bywater District was the location of the arrest of Homer Plessy that led to the United States Supreme Court civil rights Plessy versus Ferguson. In November of 1960, 4 6-year-old girls, Ruby Bridges, Gail Ashon, Plessy Prevost, and Leona Tate, came to be the first Black students attending a previously all-white South Elementary School since Reconstruction, when they entered William Franz School at 3811 North Galvez and McDonald No. 19 School, now named Louis Armstrong School, or now was named Louis Armstrong School. It was also the site of the first African Methodist Episcopal Church in the Deep South. Built in 1844, the St. James AME Church of 222 North Roman still is a functioning institution. The Louisiana State Museum properties in the French Quarter offer a window into the city's Black history. The Cabildo provides us with a good starting point. It should be noted that a free people of color, Raphael Bernabe, received a contract in the 1790s to build the Cabildo's commanding door, water, and staircases. The Cabildo also housed a bust of Tommy LaFawn, who was one of the city's most activist philanthropists. He helped to fund Charity Hospital and the Underground Railroad. Along with the artifacts such as Napoleon's death mask, the Cabildo's exhibits portray the diversity of life in Louisiana, including African American contributions. Informational panels and artifacts depict Black life through insurrections, military contributions, plantation life, slave auctions, personal accounts, and politics. A section highlighting the 1815 Battle of New Orleans featured a snare gun used by Jordan Noble to conflict's 14-year-old Black drummer boy who kept up the drum beat in the hell of fire, as it was reported. A reconstruction exhibit displayed the New Orleans-based Leon and Tribune the first black newspaper in the South, and the first black daily in the United States, respectively. On the third floor is a sculpture of Norbert Rieu, New Orleans scientist of color who revolutionized sugarcane processing in the 1840s with his vacuum pan processing method. While the Cabildo and the Mint provided us with great artifacts, much of New Orleans is a living museum. Walking 6 blocks down Orleans Street from the back of St. Louis Cathedral, we arrive at Louis Armstrong Park in Congo Square. This is the site where slaves gathered in antebellum times to relive African homeland rituals with dance, drum, and song. As early as 1786, a clergyman noted the custom of the Negroes who at the Vespers hours assembled in a green expanse called Congo Square to dance the bamboo. After the Civil War, Congo Square was also the place black people in New Orleans celebrated the Emancipation Proclamation, mourned the death of Abraham Lincoln, and actually staged an 1867 civil disobedience sit-in demonstration that led to integrated transportation until 1902. Today, a statue of Louis Armstrong gazes benignly toward Congo Square while lights from the Mahalia Theater for the Performing Arts glitter over land that once was heard the voodoo chants of West African women. The New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival began at Congo Square. In 1993, Congo Square joined other New Orleans landmarks on the National Register of Historic Places. Taking a trip into the past can be as easy as venturing to the French Quarter or taking a streetcar ride uptown, or taking an afternoon to study the architecture of Treme, or search your own neighborhoods for the homes of jazz musicians, civil rights leaders, and other notables from the past. The more you learn about the ancestral Orleans neighborhoods, the more you realize that New Orleans is a city that deserves to be preserved. The Treme neighborhood is a place that has received a lot of attention. By the 1890s, this neighborhood compares Congo Square and absorbed the spirit. The Crusader newspaper from those times depicted the community as being awash in political, civil rights, cultural, and musical expressions. At neighborhood halls, for 15 cents, Orleans and Treme danced away Saturday night to the music of Professor Moret, Tio and Duplay, and Onward String Band. A roster of the name of the musicians who played in New Orleans Dixieland brass bands between the 1880 and 1915 indicated that well over half lived in the Creole suburbs, primarily Faubourg Treme. And today it still provides an inspirational ambiance for writers, artists, musicians, and other professionals. It is not uncommon to see young boys walking these streets, rat-tat-tatting on their drums. Walk down river on North Rampart Street from Congo Square. Turn left into Treme via St. Philip, Ursulines, Governor, Nichols, or Barracks. Then 1 block to St. Paul. Most of the houses were built in the 18th century. When you walk down these streets, you walk past houses that may have been over for 180 years ago. Treme's architecture consists of 10 different styles of Creole cottages, 2-story townhouses and villas with side or center halls and trusty shotgun homes. Creole cottages can be identified by roofs that slope toward the street, French doors, and vertical board shutters that protect against storm. Before the Civil War, people of color owned 80% of Treme's property at one time or another. Walking down St. Paul, which is now Henriette DeLille Street, you're introduced to homes and businesses that have withstood the test of time. The family of Ann Barron, a free woman of color from Kingston, Jamaica, lived in the Laurent Cottage that stands today at 1014 St. Claude. The Ross Cottage at 1131, Governor Nichols received the name from a free man of color named Philippe Rose, who built the double Creole cottage in approximately 1830. And so this is the 300 years that have gone by and it's still going by, in our beautiful city. And so thank you so much.
Thank you, Keith. We can open up to questions for anyone who may have some additional questions.
So,
Melissa Hewitt now.
hey, it's me. So Congo Square, I read the book on Congo Square, and it actually has some wonderful pictures in there, and it really blew my mind, because knowing the history of Congo Square, I don't remember if it was after the Civil War, maybe it was during the Jim Crow era, but they actually renamed it Beauregard Square and actually had signs posted.
Yeah, that was when Separate But Equal was.
Right, but how long or how little did that last? Because I can't imagine it lasted during.
Oh, it lasted from the time of the Civil War and the other people won.
Right.
It was like that. And then Freddie Evans is the one who had a book to get everything cleared out about that way.
Okay, so his name was Freddie Evans. That's who.
Yeah, F-R-E-D-D-I.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and she's the one. She did a lot of stuff for that. And Luther Gray.
Oh, was that the lady with the school? No, I'm sorry. I'm getting people mixed up. Okay, Freddie Evans.
No, it is Freddie Evans. And so she did her whole thing. My whole thing was Plessy versus Ferguson. And her whole thing was Congo Square.
Okay.
And so we're good friends and everything. Sometimes we're frenemies, but it's
Awesome. Because I haven't come across, or maybe I just don't remember reading the information of when that actually ended.
Well, it ended, just about 10 years ago, whenever she put that up.
Okay.
So before that, it was Beauregard Square.
Okay.
And that's where all the parades used to go through, because they would go down Orleans Avenue.
Thank you.
When you were asking about Congo Square, Freddie Evans has written 2 books on Congo Square.
Right. I probably have one of them. It's a whole book about Congo Square. Because in the middle they have all the pictures, and I saw that picture and saw the little signs that for whites only, and they were like, they renamed it Beauregard Square, and I'm like, and that just blew my mind because I do know the history of Congo Square, and I was just like, how do you do that? But
And then also Freddie had a bunch of children's books that talked about Congo Square.
Okay.
Also.
Oh, those sound like fun too.
So Keith, I've got a question. One of the things that struck me about Black life in New Orleans is just the myriad of stories of different individuals, organizations, businesses. In researching that book, I wonder, was there a particular story of an individual that jumped out at you or kind of really caught your attention while researching that book?
Well, I would say that it was directed, actually. Because, here's the texture of it. I grew up in New Orleans. I grew up in New Orleans. I grew up in New Orleans on Frenchman Street, Burgundy Street, which was exactly where Plessy and Plessy lived. But nobody ever told me that, And this was one of the biggest Supreme Court cases in the nation, Plessy versus Ferguson. So, like growing up in school and everything, nobody told us anything about those kinds of history books. We didn't know anything about Africa. We didn't know about anything about what white supremacists told us they can do. That's the only thing you can get stuff done. So, but the teacher staff would start getting a whole lot of stuff, and you know, they would do it, but it was, you know, it's like they would have to go out and find a way to do it and everything like that, and spend money to learn about the history, you know. So, and so that was a problem with me when I started researching all this stuff right here at Amistad. I'm just flabbergasted about all the things that were, you know, I'm trying to get all that stuff back into circulation, kind of.
With the change in New Orleans since Katrina, are there any, excuse my expression, younger folks who are keeping this history alive? You know, do you have young people coming to you who want to write or who want to do something to make sure that history isn't lost? Like you talking about Fannie C. Williams, you know. There was a school named after her,
yeah.
And she lived, I think, until maybe the mid-80s. And, you know, just with things changing and signs being erased and, you know.
Well, the thing right now is with charter schools, I don't know what happens in charter schools, you know. Oh, somebody knows what happens in charter schools.
I was going to ask, because I'm a history teacher in a charter school.
Okay.
And I was wondering what, like, big things, because, like, most of my lessons are from the perspective of Black people, and most of my materials I'm giving students are primary sources. Though I would really love, like, advice or resources that you would push for a lot of my kids to kind of be put forth, like, before them. Because, for example, right now we're talking about Reconstruction. We just finished a unit on slavery. And a lot of the frustrations that my students have is they're getting really frustrated learning about slavery, saying that, like, all this is being poured down our throats. I don't really like learning about this. But kind of trying to push forward that this is really, really important to learn about. Like, it's basically a domino effect that's affecting New Orleans today, and this history needs to be something that's talked about constantly. But how do we kind of put forward this narrative, especially towards students who are really, really frustrated with the education system in general, what they're learning?
You know, if you go to a wine club, Second by Wine, 1027 Turo Street, every Friday they do a wine tasting. So, and I'm the person who's doing the whole thing with the books things, you know. So it's a great wine tasting too. I mean, it's fun and everything. But a lot of people who are in your situation, I mean, they are a lot of people in that situation. They go there because I would sell books to them, and that's where they get their information from me from. So, you know, but like I said, with charter schools, it's just like you were telling me, like you can say that, but I mean, there's like 41 charter schools, I think, and then you would have to go to each one to find out information, you know. So, and it used to be when I was in all the schools, everybody would stick together for the same amount of years. The teachers would be there, but it wasn't this turnover, et cetera, that was going on. So, you know, the people, a lot of people from the charter schools, when they're at the wine bar, they like this book because it's learning about them, and maybe in ways that they didn't know.
Well, going back to what she said, which was just a little piece of what I was thinking. You know, if you're a teacher in a charter school and you're from Hartford, Connecticut, and you're supposedly going to teach the children their history, I think that, you know, I would think that the principal or the staff developer would point out areas in New Orleans where they can receive information. I mean, just being here in this research center is like, whoa, you know, but how many educators really connect here to get information? You may have a textbook And like you say, the children are like, you know, but you have to bring in other real life experiences. And places like this, the McKenna Museum, and other places in New Orleans that are growing and preparing us and continuing this kind of history are just full of information. So I think, you know, you gotta kind of close the books and bring it alive in some kind of way.
And I'm sure some charter schools do that, but I think there's no way to validate.
Right.
I agree with you stating that we need to bring in outside research, et cetera. But I have to also state this, because I'm a retired teacher, and I taught 34 years in the school system. And you have to have a principal who is receptive. That's number one. Now, you can bring in all the people that you want, and you may know all the resources, but if you don't have that support behind you, we have to study for the proficiency test or the LEAP test. This isn't part of that. Well, African American history can be a part of any subject. You can incorporate it. It's not 28 days of seventh grade. You know, it's every day. And in my class, it was every day. I used to get a lot of flack, you know, and I did it anyway. You know what I mean? Because, you know, math or whatever, a teacher was teaching, you can always support. And so, like I said, we have to have a supportive, you know, principle. You know, because other than that, you're left out by yourself. And then a lot of your other teachers are not going to basically support, you know, you maybe if you step out, they might want to do it, but they know that they're going to be evaluated and they push back and don't do it. You go out there and yourself. I know how that feels. So then you just have to do what you feel.
Can you tell us about the cover of the book and why you selected that to portray Black life in New Orleans?
This one?
Yeah, I know someone illustrated it, but.
Oh, yeah, Louise Vuitton did it. And so we go through, everybody looks at that, you know. And then the other thing, so I was in Pelican. The Pelican is very conservative and everything. And somebody told me, they're not gonna let you do this, and this, and this. But they did. And Louise said, what? Y'all put that up there? Yeah. But it's kind of like, in her mind, she's evolving. She's evolving from African Americans, you know, from their birth to slavery. And then you see here, she's right here as a left, but now she has a fist. They have, you know, these kind of things on their shackles, yeah, the shackles and everything. And the more you look at it, it's like, you know, it changes a lot, you know, if you keep looking at it. And so now it's, these are Louise braids, this is somebody's braids. And now it's an eagle, so we're flying through this. So that's what I get. But you can take your own thing on it. But it's really intricate, whatever she did with it. She does that with all of her stuff. How are you?
Tell me about Forward Plantation.
I guess I
Forward, Meredith.
Well, you know, they had plantations. The whole place was plantations, slavery, you know, all the things you would expect on a plantation. And, but you know, they have, you know, they have good slave people, or you know, those kinds of stuff. But you know, at the end of the day, you can't go outside without permission.
Is there a section in the book that talks about what the Crescent City connection, I-10 and 90 did to the
I think that, yeah, I think there are some, because it's on Claiborne Avenue.
Right.
And so, yeah, there's a one in there too. But I put as much information, all I'm doing is trying to impart information as much as I know. But, yeah, I know, like, yeah, I mean, what you said was true. It's just going to, wait, give me a minute. Well, next.
But you know that the Claiborne Avenue area before I-10 came through was like
that's right.
glorious. It was like a meeting place, especially during Mardi Gras and stuff. And then over in Gentilly, like Elysian Fields and Gentilly, if you go over to 610, that was beautiful homes.
Yeah.
Where that I-10 was. And it was teachers, doctors, Indian chiefs, whatever you want to call it. And they came through with 610. And I mean, they just tore all those houses down. But if you look next to the 610, there are little raggedy houses that folks used to rent. None of them were touched, so it just amazed me, because I was a teenager then, that, my mama said, oh, Miss So-and-so moving, and they moving, and, I wondered, well, why they moving? And then when I got a little older and saw 610, I-10 coming through, it was for that purpose, but it seems like they handpicked what they wanted to tear down in order to put that.
And they do that all over the country with minorities. They have their house, they have their family and everything, and then bam, you gotta go. Like during Katrina, I hate to bring it up, but I went
Yeah, don't bring that up. You fired me. I ain't happy. Go ahead.
Wasn't me.
I know. That's a whole nother conversation.
So when you grew up in the Marini, do you have any idea of who that guy, Bernard Marini, was?
Oh, but yeah. Well, he was.
Was that knowledge?
He had a plantation just like everybody else did, and there's some stories about they did this and that. But I'm more interested. I'm more about the people on the ground rather than with the plantation owners doing. So, with the plantation, how they did do their thing and say, oh yeah, we have tea and everything while all slaves are out there. So I would say you should go to the Whitman Museum to tell the real story. And, I like knowing about the plantation things and everything. It's not my cup of tea that I can't wait to go get some. Oh, when I was a child, it wasn't called Fort Maryland. It was the other side of Western. But it was when gentrification came in. That's when it became Fort Maryland. And I said, what? So we have that. So we have Fort Maryland. No, I didn't know about that. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I did not know about. Somebody could have said something and I knew it, but it wasn't on my radar at all. I mean, it wasn't out there for me to find. So, yeah.
How did you step, like from high school to college to whatever your thing was, to evolve into such a historian in regard to the information that you provide in your books?
Well, because I was angry. I was also very militant. I was in the 60s. I went to jail. I was looking at Angola. Believe it or not, you know how cute I am. That's not okay. What was up, boss? What else?
Are you still connected, but you said your writing was mostly associated with the people on the ground and just like how they feel. Are you still connected in that way now, or know how they feel about the transitions that's going on, like in the Marini and the Violence and the Tremaine, those neighborhoods?
Well, I don't. Well, like those things, that's just regular politics, I think, you know, if what you
Well,
got.
something like demographic.
Oh yeah, the demographic, well, yeah, you know, the demographic changes, they're gonna have a lot of them. I mean, but they decided that if somebody comes with more money, you know, I mean, it's capitalism, so,
Yeah.
you know. And a lot of people had their homes, loved homes, and, you know, but they could just take a bulldozer at any time and knock them down, like if you didn't pay enough. So, I mean, they had a whole lot of people, like, especially with Katrina, I mean, 100,000 people never came back in like New Orleans. So, but nobody else, like on the other side, felt there was anything wrong with it. Yes.
I moved here from Texas like just before Katrina, and in Texas you have historic districts in certain cities, right? And one day post-Katrina, I was driving around and I realized, why doesn't New Orleans have a historic district? And I realized all of New Orleans is a historic district. That was an epiphany for me. And when I think about, and you throw a brick, you're gonna hit something historic here. How did you figure out what you wanted to put in your book? Because it seems like there's such, your experience is one, the experience of your family, but then also it sounds like everywhere you turned, there was something that was noteworthy. Your book isn't an encyclopedia, though it probably could be. How did you, what guided you on which stories you wanted to tell?
Well, I start with doing a term paper, and then and at the end of it, you just keep building on that and building on that. So this book is a thematic book. It starts here and goes, but it has the same theme. And the theme, one of this is Black Life in Old New Orleans. So it's thematic, and it goes, when it's going through the centuries, So like if you're reading in it, it's like you're reading in it, it's like you're going from the 1912s to the 1914s, like that. So that way you can go from this 300 to here.
We have time for one more question for this evening.
Do you have one favorite street in New Orleans that...
Burgundy. I was born on Burgundy Street.
But don't you think that if you grew up in New Orleans in the 50s and 60s, like you had Burgundy, and my idea of life was St. Bernard and Cleveland area, I knew every little store and stuff, and you went
At least I always
somewhere.
be in a Southern Ward, because I was a Southern Ward type guy, and so I grew up with all those people and everything. And it's we're talking about displacement, but a lot of people, it's funny, all the friends I had and everything, they used to be comfortable places that you could go. But when they started demolishing everything, all the people that you used to know, they're an illusion from me now. I think Bob Dylan. But so it's sad to see you have a community and then it just starts getting ripped apart and never to be found again. And then what you have left are people are like thugs, if I can use the term. You have the bad side of humanity. Because now they don't have anywhere to go, so they turn to drugs and alcohol and violence and all that stuff. So, and I see this like the crack epidemic and all those drug things. I mean, that's because people weren't solidified in their community. They didn't have any way to do it, and nobody was giving them anyway. And even now, I mean, if y'all go underneath the Super Bowl and everything, and if you look up under the overpass by the Super Bowl, there's nothing but people lying in the street, and nobody doing it. It's never seemed to be a big problem, but it is. It has to be. And all those people probably were longshoremen, and then when they stopped longshoring, so all the real longshoremen had to go to find something to do. So, and so it's kind of like, I know this happens all the time, but it should be made more thoughtful if you're going to mess up people's community.
Let's give another round of applause. Thank you, everyone, for coming out. Keith does have a few copies of both Black Life and We as Free Men. We're going to set up.
And I'll tell y'all more about Louise.
But we have some for sale. I would encourage you, if you didn't get a chance before the talk, to take a look at the exhibition. A number of the individuals, businesses, and such that Keith talked about in his books, there's materials on display. Some of those primary sources for teaching that you can take a look at. We have some more food and drink out. Please enjoy yourselves. Thank you all for coming.